Yo, what is good, everybody? I'm your boy Jadiro, and this is my leveling guide for Spiritborn in Diablo 4 Season 9, Sins of the HORADRIC. And the first thing we're talking about here are aspects, and the first one on our necklace piece is aspect of falling feathers. This will allow us to spawn storm feathers every time we use a mobility skill or we use evade. And now storm feathers drop from the sky, dealing lightning damage on impact. Moving down to our first ring here, we have aspect of recalling feathers. So whenever we use a focus skill, it recalls all the storm feathers that are spawned towards us, dealing more lightning damage. And if there's ever no storm feathers available, whenever we use a focus skill, we spawn 10 randomly around us. Moving down to the second ring here, we have the aspect of empowered feathers. So our eagle skills now have a chance to spawn storm feathers. And each storm feather that we pick up now reduces the cooldown of our mobility skill. And the main mobility skill that we're going is Rushing Claw, but I'll talk more on that later. Now this build focuses more on the storm feather shenanigans. It's more of a play on the current evade build, but I put my own spin on it with Rushing Claw. So big ups to the creator. I believe it's Rob that created it. Big ups to him. Great build. Now moving on to some damage multipliers. On our two-handed weapon, we have the aspect of redirected force. And this increases our critical strike damage based on our block chance. And when we block, we double this bonus. Now moving up to our gloves, we have the Vehement Brawler's aspect. Now you could put the aspect of unyielding hits if you like, but I currently like the Vehement Brawler's aspect, simply because whenever we use our ultimate skill, we get a damage multiplier, and we're constantly using our ultimate with this build. And of course on our boots here, we're going the Duelist aspect, which increases our maximum ferocity. Now here's a couple other cool flex defensive aspects. We have the aspect of reactive armor, and then we have the aspect of temporal incisions. And the aspect of reactive armor increases our block chance, and it also gives us a chance to cast a free concussive stomp. Now casting gorilla skills will matter a little bit more when I go over the passive skills, and I'll give more of an explanation on that in just a bit. And as for the aspect of temporal incisions on the chest piece, it allows Rushing Claw to increase the duration of our incarnate skill effects. Okay, now that we're done with the main aspects and the flexible aspects, let's talk about those abilities. Now starting off with our first ability here, we have Rushing Claw. This is my favorite Spiritborn ability. And the version of Rushing Claw that we're going will allow us to refill our charges by consuming stacks of ferocity. The idea here is we constantly want an uptime on Rushing Claw. And of course for our basic ability, we have Thunderspike. The evade build allows us to just spam our evade, and what it does is it allows us to cast Thunderspike and reset the cooldown of our evade. I'll give you guys a demonstration of this later in the video. Now moving over to our first incarnate spell, we have Counterattack. This is simply just a damage multiplier. Now moving over one, we have Armored Hide, another incarnate skill, and this is simply just for unstoppable. Moving over to our third incarnate spell here, we have Ravager. And this passively increases our minimum ferocity stacks. And then finally we have our ultimate, the Hunter. This is just amazing for some good damage, a good damage multiplier, and it also has the ability to reset its own cooldown. Now, if you guys want to skip all that jazz, you can jump over to Mobalytics, and I got the build there for you. And most importantly, I have the skill tree and the Paragon board over there at Mobalytics for you, and you can simply click over to leveling path and see how I invested every skill on my journey from levels 1 to 60. And I'll be sure to include a link in the description and in the comments for you guys to click on and go find the build there too. So that does it for our main abilities and Mobalytics. Let's go over to the passive skills next. So here we are over at the skill tree, and our first passive skill is Focal Point, but what we really want here is Apex, and this is a vulnerable damage multiplier. Now moving over, we're putting a full 3 into Mirage as well, and this increases our dodge chance, and it also increases our critical strike chance. And then we're putting a full 3 into Unrestrained Power to simply give us another damage multiplier. And we get that multiplier whenever we're unstoppable or unhindered, and of course Armored Hide gives us that unstoppable proc. Now we're going to move down here to Swift, and this will help us reset the cooldowns of our mobility skills. Now moving down to our defensive tab here, we have 1 in Endurance, but what we really want here is Perseverance. This gives us damage reduction based on how many resolve stacks we have. And moving over to the right here, we have Patient Guard. It gives us a 10% block chance, but what we really want again is Auspicious. This will allow us to generate Barrier just to give us some more damage reduction. Now moving down to the Potency tab, we put a full 3 into Resilient. This will increase our maximum life whenever we cast a Gorilla skill. And it's also why I thought putting the aspect of Reactive Armor was a good idea, so that we get that free cast of Concussive Stomp. That way we have a more frequent uptime with Resilient. Now moving over to Brilliance and Acceleration, it's simply just to give us some Eagle damage multipliers. And we also put a full 3 into Potent and a full 3 into Furnace for some Jaguar damage multipliers. Now moving down to the ultimate section here, we put a full 3 into Resolution. This will give us a damage multiplier whenever we use our ultimate. And then we put one into Spiritual Attunement, but what we really wanted here was Supremacy. This is another damage multiplier that's based around our ultimate. And then I put a full 3 into Initiative simply to give us more unstoppable uptime. And of course, when we're unstoppable, we get that damage multiplier from Unrestrained Power. And then finally, for our key passive here, we have Vital Strikes. This gives us a damage multiplier whenever enemies are vulnerable. And we get vulnerable from Thunderspike when we cast Evade, but we also get it from our Spirit Hall. But let's talk about that Paragon board next. Now, what I have here on the Paragon board is simply just the first board. Again, this is a leveling guide, so you'll only have about 29 to 25 points during your journey from levels 1 to 60. And once you hit level 60, you're rewarded with those Paragon points. Now, make sure you get every rare node on this board. And the glyph I went with was the Jagged Plume glyph. This increases our damage for spawning Storm Feathers, and it also increases our movement. It stacks up to 5 times. Talon and Fulminate are also good alternatives as glyphs. Alright, so that does it for the Paragon board. Let's go over the rotation demonstration next. Alright guys, here we are in Kyovashad. This is a very simple build to play. All you want to simply do is spam Evade and Rushing Claw. And it looks something like this when you're trying to level. Now, why Rushing Claw is so cool is because it allows you to have some super mobility. And that's why I call this bird blitz. And also what you want to do periodically, again, is spam that Evade. And you can almost infinitely Rushing Claw. Pretty cool. And while you're spamming Rushing Claw and Evade, whenever your ultimate comes up, don't forget to drop that every so often. And you can also spam your Incarnate spells as soon as they come off a cooldown. Pretty simple. Now, I know it might feel like we're skipping steps here, but let's go over the Spirit Hall and see how this really all comes together. So onto the Spirit Hall now. Our primary Spirit Hall is Eagle, and our secondary Spirit Hall is Jaguar. Now, something I want to mention right quick here is as for the boots, especially for the Spirit Hall, you want to have as many evade charges as possible. So on the boots here, you can see we have increased maximum evade charges. I'm not going to lie, I had the wrong boots when I went over the aspects. I don't know how I had them equipped, but these are the right boots. Also, another good option is, if you can't get the additional stacks of evade, is the attacks reduce evade's cooldown. But back to the Spirit Hall, this is where the big stonks and the big eagle damage comes from. So whenever we evade, we cast Storm Feathers and it deals a butt ton of damage. And it also makes enemies vulnerable. And we also get movement speed from our eagle skills. Now, as for the Jaguar Spirit Hall, this is how we keep Rushing Claw up for such a long time. Now, what's even more cool about the Spirit Hall for Jaguar is once we're attacking bosses, we can literally just hold down Rushing Claw and not have to worry about us losing the cooldown. If you look at the bottom text of the Jaguar Spirit Hall, it says gain 1 stack of ferocity whenever you kill an enemy or damage a boss. So that way we'll be constantly consuming stacks of ferocity to keep up Rushing Claw. Alright, so that does it for the Spirit Hall. Let's go over the gems and tempering next. So I'm going to keep it quite simple. As for a weapon, we're simply going to put Sapphire gems into our weapon to give us increased vulnerable damage. And as for our necklace and our rings, we simply want diamonds. This gives us that resistance to all elements, and resistance is so important in this season. As for our armor, if we can, of course, put our main stat, which is dexterity, with emeralds. Now, as for the tempering on the weapon, I want you to get primary Eagle Spirit Hall potency and Storm Feather potency. Try and get those two if you can. If you can't, just simply try and aim for the Storm Feather potency. And we're going to triple up on that effort on our necklace and our ring pieces as well for that Storm Feather potency. Everything else doesn't really matter. Again, this is a leveling build. Now, there are the Horadric gems, but you really don't start getting into the Horadric gems until you get much later in the Torments. And speaking of the Horadric gems, let's talk about the Horadric Spellcraft next. Now, Horadric Spellcraft is the seasonal power. Now, you're going to get the Thunderous Particle and the Corrosive Vapor right off the hop. I recommend you choose between these two. I think the Thunderous Particle is awesome because it takes away that suppressor effect on the elites. It makes it so easy. Now, the best Callus, hands down, is Disintegrate, but I like Astral Pillar. When I'm clearing the Nightmare Dungeons or the escalating Nightmare Dungeons or simply just running the pit, I like how the Astral Pillar stays in place and it kind of cleans up the mess that we leave behind because we're so mobile with this build. However, Disintegrate is also a great option simply because of the damage scaling this has off the hop. And as for the Arcanas, we don't have too many right now. It takes a while to collect them. Honestly, I missed a whole bunch because I didn't realize that they were color-coded like our weapons and our armor were with blue, yellow. I didn't understand that. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of the Arcana. So basically, it's a leveling guide again, so you can go whatever Arcana you want. Now, this next part is for everyone that has the Vessel of Hatred. I'm going to go over the runes and the mercenaries. Let's make this real quick. We want Vortex from the Spiritborn, and every time that we cast an evade, we cast Vortex. So the runes there are Chem and Cry. And next, we're going to go Zan and Gar. Really, I don't care about Zan. I want Gar. I like that increased critical strike chance. As for the mercenaries, as your hired mercenary, you can go whoever you want. I simply recommend leveling up Subo first, because once you level up Subo, you can go to the mercenary camp and purchase the boss materials from Subo once you level them up fully. But as for our reinforcement, I like Varanya simply because we get that Bloodthirst attack speed boost. Now, I kept that section brief simply because I think that mercenaries and runes should be available to everyone, even people that play on the Eternal Realm. I don't think it's cool that they don't get to experience that part of the game. Well, that does it for that section. Let's move on to some quick level up tips next. Now, first things first, let's go over to our wardrobe and make sure that you have your pet equipped. This makes the leveling experience much easier to collect those items that you don't want to go back and collect. Also, don't forget your consumables tab here. You have elixirs. They give you increased experience. Drink these. So those are my quick level up tips. Let's go over to the map and I'll tell you guys how to level up the fastest from levels 1 to 60. Now, in terms of difficulty, you want to play on normal your whole way through. The only reason you're going to want to change your difficulty is if you're just one-shotting everything and you find the game too easy. Now, in terms of the shortest time it takes to get from level 1 to 60 is apparently the Vessel of Hatred campaign. But if you don't have the Vessel of Hatred, I got you. The best way you want to level up if you don't have the Vessel of Hatred is you want to go over to the Helltide. The Helltide, you'll be able to get Grim Favor, and then you'll be able to go to the Tree of Whispers and flip those Grim Favor for experience and items. Now, of course, the Helltide is only up for an hour, so what do you do in the downtime? What I would recommend you do is Nightmare Dungeons. Whether you have the sigils or you don't, you can always go to the Nightmare Dungeons that reward Grim Favor. And you can rinse and repeat at the Tree of Whispers and hand in that Grim Favor. Now, once you get to level 40, 45, what you want to do on the map here is Strongholds. Do as many as you can until you get to level 60. And I also recommend doing the seasonal quest in the interim between Helltides and Nightmare Dungeons and Strongholds. You'll be able to get those Horadric spells a lot faster. But yeah, guys, that's the quickest way to level up from levels 1 to 60. So that does it for my quick level up tips and how to progress from levels 1 to 60. Let's go into the pit next. Now, before we get into the pit here, guys, I want to preface, I don't have any GA items. Also, this build is capable of getting you into Torment too. All right, here we are in a tier 20. I know it's not the biggest, but you know, again, we don't have any GA items on. We're simply just going to push through this as fast as we possibly can. Again, this build is just for fun. It's definitely a play on the evade build that's currently out. I believe Rob, it was the one that created the build, or I'm not sure if someone else did, but that's where I first saw it, if I'm being honest. And again, I just wanted to put my spin on this build with Russian Claw, simply because I love Russian Claw. I want there to be an endgame Russian Claw build that is actually viable, and I think there is. Maybe the potential is in Season 9. But again, I just enjoy the zippy nature of this build. It's one of my favorite abilities next to Crushing Hand. And the Spiritborn is my favorite class, and my second favorite class is the Druid. But as you see here, we're just ripping through the enemies with Russian Claw, and when we get the chance to evade, of course we take it. And we're pretty much just spamming our abilities, right? Oh, we got stuck here. We're stuck on this chain thing. We gotta merc that. Perfect. It's making sure we evade. Yeah, we're pushing pretty fast through this pit, of course. Again, you can push all the way into Torment 2 with no GA items on, which is dope. And we're getting to this pretty quickly again. Just don't forget to spam that space bar or that evade every possible chance you get while you're spamming Russian Claw. I felt like Russian Claw just kind of added that extra zip to it instead of just spamming evade. Once you get later in the game, it looks like you can further the cooldown of evade, and you'll be able to evade a lot more frequently. So Russian Claw was added to the build simply just to fill the space between that time and to kind of quicken up the build in a sense. And again, I'll say it again and again, I love Russian Claw. I think Russian Claw is such a cool ability. There's some cool aspects for Russian Claw. I think they need to be like doubled or tripled in terms of the multiplier. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but I'm sure If I put my mind to it, I'll be able to come up with an end game version of this build, hopefully. And if not, you can always, not just me, but we can always default to the current evade build that's out right now, right? So yeah, definitely loving this build. It's definitely having I had a whole lot of fun playing it and leveling up with it too, which is dope. But here we go. This is my favorite part, that we get to just spam Russian Claw on the boss. I mean, of course, it's just cool because it looks cool, but really what you want to do is sneak in those evades. We want to make the enemy vulnerable here while spamming those Russian Claws. And as you can see, when they're vulnerable, we do big damage, right? So here we go. And boom. All done. Alright guys, that was the pit. As you can see, you're going to absolutely blast from levels 1 to 60. And even when you get to Torment 1, you're going to have a whole lot of fun just farming Torment 1 for those GA items. Now, my end game foresight, I kind of talked about it there in the pit. I do hope and I do believe there's a space for the Russian Claw build to be something. And again, if there is no space for that, or if it's just not possible or not viable, we can always fall back to the default evade build. And I also like to reiterate here, big ups to the creators of the evade build. It's definitely fun. It's definitely mobile. I think speed is the name of the game in Season 9. So it's definitely one of the more fun builds to play right now. But let's go over a quick build overview. We're going to go over the skills first here. We got Russian Claw, Thunderspike, Counterattack, Armored Hide, Ravager, and the Hunter. As for all the main and flexible aspects, I'll chapter that for you in this video. You can go check it out there. In terms of Spirit Hall, we're going Eagle as primary, and as our secondary, we're going Jaguar. As for the passive skills and the Paragon board, I'll also chapter that for you in this video. And finally, as for the HORADRIC spells, we're going the Thunderous Particle. Again, you can go Corrosive Vapor, and I highly suggest Astral Pillar or Disintegrate as your catalyst. Well guys, that does it for me. I hope you enjoyed the Bird Blitz leveling guide for Spiritborn. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm your boy Jadiro. Sign out for now. Peace.